Hi, my name is Lindsay, and this is my assistant, Bambi. Today I'm going to show you how to roll out your calves with a tennis ball and a stretch you can do with a yoga block or just a step if you have available. We'll start by talking about the calf. The main muscle groups are the gastromenius, which is going to feel like two muscles in the back of the leg. One of the muscle heads attaches on the inside and one on the outside. And then underneath that, you have the soleus, so a little deeper set calf muscle. We're going to start down by the ankle, not all the way by the heel, and just get that ball in there and start to roll a little bit side to side. From here, you can flex and point the foot a little bit too, depending on how intense that feels. And we'll begin to move just up the leg, just continuing, and start to notice as you're rolling where you might be feeling intensity. You might be feeling those two bigger muscle groups and feeling any sort of jumping across knots. Just notice and breathe through any of those moments. If there's anything that feels intense, maybe hold and do a little flex and point there for a moment. And just keep moving that ball up the back of the leg. And then once you reach the knee, we'll get to a little bit behind the knee, but not all the way behind the knee. So it'll get a little bit more sensitive up here and just start to notice how the knots feel in that area. And then we'll go ahead and move on. The next thing we're going to do is the inside of the leg. So trying to feel where that shin bone is, and we'll go right underneath that shin bone and just kind of sit in a Z-like position of the legs and just gently start to roll up and down. And you can use the opposite hand to press into this to make a little bit more pressure into those muscles as needed. And you might notice you find more knots in this area than another area. I tend to have a lot of knots in this area. I'm a dancer, and so our lower leg muscles get a lot of work, but runners are a good candidate for ball rolling. Also, anybody who wears heels, a lot of times this is a very neglected part of the body, but if we can get it to loosen up, sometimes other joints higher up in the body benefit. The last thing we'll do on that side is the peroneus muscle. So we're going on, you can kind of feel there's a meaty muscle on the outside of that leg. And same thing here, we're just going up and down into that muscle and just kind of seeing, and you can use the opposite hand to press into this. Some people like using harder balls, like a lacrosse ball or a golf ball even, but I would recommend the tennis ball because it's a little bit softer and a little closer to the tissue of our muscles and our fascia, and our nervous system tends to react positively when it's not stressed out to a 10 out of 10. You want to get to maybe 5, 6 out of 10 in intensity when you're stretching or rolling. So the nervous system is able to absorb the work that you're doing, absorb the stretching and the getting all of the blood flow in a nice, kind way to our muscles. Let's go to the other side. So same thing here, just going into a couple inches above that ankle. And again, you can use that hand on the leg to kind of press down. And you might notice if we do have any really large knots in the muscle, the ball might kind of jump over them. It's okay, just try to move slower through those areas and see if maybe you can get that ball to work into where the little knots are, and just gently working through that. And again, if you find something that feels like it needs a little more attention, you can flex and point a few times. That's just going to stretch the muscle and contract the muscle a couple of times. So you're getting deeper into that. And again, as you're rolling, just start to feel where those muscles lie, and you'll kind of feel the two big parts of the gastromenius, and maybe you find those deeper set muscles as well. You can feel closer to the bone. And again, reminder, we're trying to get up to behind the knee, but not all the way into that sensitive area. Be careful in that region. And same thing on this side, we'll move underneath the shin bone here, and we're just working into those muscles, and you might notice intensity more on one side than the other. And just be aware of that, nothing alarming. We're not perfectly symmetrical humans. So just see if you can observe without judgment kind of what's going on with your body. Sometimes just observing helps our body absorb this work that we're doing. And you can also notice flexing the foot as you do this, or pointing it, or keeping it totally relaxed, just kind of seeing how that feels as you roll. And lastly, for the rolling, we'll go to the outside of that same leg and using the top hand, press down, keep that ball in place here. And again, you can kind of change where the foot placement is, flexing or pointing or relaxed, to see if that helps get deeper into any of those areas that maybe need a little bit of attention today. And you even on this side, you want to get close to the little bony area of the ankle. It's going to feel a little bit more stringy because that's where all the attachment points are, the tendons and ligaments. But it is a good area that needs a little help getting some blood flow in there so everything smoothly functions in your body. All right, once you feel good with that, and you can spend as long or as little as you'd like, you can get rid of the ball and you can find your way to a step, or I'm going to show on this yoga block today. We're starting with a straight leg. So if you are using a yoga block, I would take one foot to stabilize the far end of the block, and then take the heel and just drop it off of the back end. If you're on a stair, it's a little easier. Make sure you're holding on to something. If you're on the block, again, just making sure you're holding the core so there's no wobbles here. And you're just going to gently let that heel drop down and breathe there, and start to notice if you can soften the front of the ankle. A lot of times when stuff becomes tense, we kind of tense the tendons in the front of the ankle, and I want to see if you can relax those. And staying here, we're just going to move. You can stay a little bit longer, but I'm going to keep moving on. You can go a little bit more turned in, so more of a pigeon-toed position. I'll turn to face you so you can see that a little bit better. You can do turned in a little bit so the heel is wider than the toes. And you can also do slightly turned out so the heel is a little bit on the inside of the toes. And then we'll go back to that parallel, and we'll do the same thing, but instead of a straight back leg, you're just going to bend the back leg. So that's going to get into that deeper set soleus muscle there, stretching and lengthening there. And just noticing, you might not feel a lot of stretch with one versus the other. Just going to see which one is tighter for you. And we'll go ahead and switch to the other side. So starting with the straight back leg and just nice and even, heel directly behind the hip here, very parallel, making sure you're keeping the pelvis in neutral. It's also a lot of times in calf stretches, we send our hips back because it feels kind of good to sink the weight into it, but we don't want to dump into our low back. So really keeping the abdominals engaged, keeping the glutes slightly engaged is going to help isolate this into the back of the leg. And then again, we'll do slightly turned in and just holding there and breathing through this, always sending breath into the muscles. And then we'll do slightly turned out, so the heel in a little bit. And again, you can hold this longer than we're doing today, or just kind of feel where this is for your body. And then go back into parallel, and we'll just bend the back leg. So continuing to lift the front of the abdominals and seeing how that feels. Great, and then go ahead, get rid of the block. We'll do one last thing here. We're just going to walk yourself out into a down dog, planting the hands into the shoulders, walking the feet back, and you can find how wide of a down dog or how narrow feels good for your calves. This is more for the back of the legs, so start to paddle through the feet. And we're just trying to stretch out the muscles that we just rolled. And go ahead, try both heels up and both heels down a few times. And you can also leave the heels towards the floor and bend the knees, sending the hips up higher. And then go ahead, settle in with the legs fully straight. Give it 2 big breaths here, inhaling in through the nose and holding. And exhaling, letting the heels drive down, the hips lift high. One more, feeling the knees really stretch long. And exhaling. Go ahead, walk the hands and feet together. You're welcome to stay just like this. If it's available, you can take your hands, palms facing up underneath the feet. So you're just making a little bit of a crease in the front of the ankle. Maybe bend the elbows here, maybe bend the knees, See where you're getting the best stretch in the back of the legs and give it 2 breaths here. Inhaling and exhaling. One more breath wherever you are. And gently release the hands if you hooked them in. Bend the knees and we'll slowly roll the torso up 1 vertebrae at a time. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully that helped. The back of the legs release. Namaste.